G'day guys, this is Nick at Stridewise.com. I'm an Australian in New York City who has this kind of obsession with like American heritage footwear, but I'm not actually looking at an American boot today. It is a South American boot. This is the Dowler boot from Beckett Simonon. This video is sort of part of my re-review series. I've been doing this website YouTube thing on boots for over 5 years, and a lot of the boots I reviewed in my first year or first few months, I didn't know as much about boots as I know now. You know what I mean? I've learned a lot. I've like visited tanneries all over the world, and I've made my own boots once in Guatemala and all this sort of stuff, and I now have like a better understanding and appreciation on how to contextualize things. Plus, a lot of things about boots I reviewed earlier have changed. This is a notable example. So, the Dowler boot, this is like the preeminent sort of service boot from Beckett Simonon. It's a Colombian company. It was founded in 2011, and their thing is really inexpensive boots, and the way that they couch that is that they're inexpensive because they have a long wait time. So this is a made-to-order company. Made-to-order is good for the environment. It also helps to save on like storage space and that kind of stuff. Better for the carbon footprint and everything. Anything you get from Beckett Simonon, unless they just happen to have it lying around as seconds or something, or returns, which they seldom do, it's gonna take a good 3 months. So the question then becomes, is it worth it to wait that long for these boots? I would say, because these are so inexpensive, they're 250 bucks, and I've got a discount code with them, Stride, which brings them down to 207 bucks. It's 20% off. It is worth the wait. But then the question is, which of their boots is ideal for you? So we're gonna take a look at the Dowler boot. We've done reviews on like their Jodhpur boot, which is really nice. I actually really like their dress boot, their Balmoral Elliott boot as well. But this one is a bit different. The Dowler boot, this is, as I mentioned, sort of their attempt at a service boot. But service boots is generally sort of considered like an American style, modeled after soldiers in World War II. Is generally a name people just give to any boot that is like a fairly low profile lace-up sort of boot. This has more of a European look to it, the way that it really cinches in at the waist and then sort of like comes out in more of an almond-shaped toe. It takes its cues from like sort of dressier or at least less rugged footwear from the European continent. Also, a way that it distinguishes itself from a lot of American boots is that instead of being Goodyear welted, it's Blake stitched. A Goodyear welt is what people generally want from a pair of boots that they want to wear really hard, be able to resole, and be able to wear in wet weather. This is Blake stitched, which is more common on European footwear, especially dressier footwear, and what that means is it is still resolable. A lot of people think a Blake stitch isn't resolable. It is. It's a little bit harder to find a cobbler who can do it, but you can definitely do it. It's just not quite as water resistant as a Goodyear welt. This is still going to keep your feet pretty dry. It's not a big deal. But again, the Blake stitch, the upsides of that is that it's cheaper to make. It's also more lightweight and more flexible. There's like kind of less going on in the sole construction there. So a lot of people do prefer Blake stitches, and I'm a fan of them myself. This is a nice lightweight boot compared to a lot of American boots. It's, as you can see, a little bit slimmer than a lot of American boots, but some of the updates I'm not super crazy about. So let's get into the leather. There have been a few interesting changes to Beckett Simonon's leather since I purchased this boot that many years ago. Today, this boot comes in 3 ranges of leather, and they will have 3 different product pages on their site, which is annoying. Like, it's hard for me to link to all of the Dowler boots. You can find them in the description below. So they have 3 ranges of leather now. The normal Dowler boot, then there's a range of pebbled grain boot, which has been embossed with a more pebbly texture to make it look a bit more like totally full grain, uncorrected leather. And then they have the pull-up leathers, and the pull-up ones, those are more oily. They've been infused with more waxes, and they're a bit more geared toward hard wear. I would have preferred one of the pull-up leathers. I didn't get it. This is basically the new version of the boot that I got 5 years ago. When I got the last boot, it was vegetable tanned calfskin from Argentina. And I said at the time, I was really impressed with how hardy it was and how good it looked, given that it was calfskin, which is typically something you see more for dressier footwear because it tends to be thinner and wrinkle more finely, and it's sort of the go-to leather for dressier footwear. Here today, they changed tanneries. So now they are getting their leather from a tannery in Italy, and while a lot of people, they hear Italian leather, they think that's gonna be better than Argentinian leather, but there are plenty of not great tanneries in Italy as well, and to be honest, the leather on the Dowler boot today, I'm not really impressed with the quality. You can just sort of tell it's not super rigid, it's very chromy. Even though it's calfskin, which tends to make it like more thin than full grain cowhide, it's nonetheless, it's just not great quality sort of leather. It sort of tries to be dressy, but it's not nice enough to be seen on a dressy boot. And as a casual leather, it's too chromy and shiny, and it just doesn't wrinkle in quite the right way. You can tell this is inexpensive leather. Now, that shouldn't be a huge surprise because these are inexpensive boots, so I do try to review things within the context of how much they cost. That said, there is a tendency in the boot world, especially among these direct-to-order companies like Beckett Simonon, to say that these boots are actually $400 boots, but we got them down to 200 bucks because of the magic of the made-to-order system and the direct-to-consumer model. Sometimes there's some validity to those arguments. With this one, it is a good quality boot. I'm just not super pumped about the leather upper on this one. I think the pull-up leather looked a bit better, and I think it would be better suited to this style of boot as well. In addition to that, the leather use of the heel stack here, they say it's a heel stack. Honestly, the leather here doesn't come off as like great quality in the heel. It seems more like bonded leather or something to me than the kind of hardy, thick vegetable tan leather you typically want in a heel that's gonna be more durable. Nonetheless, it is stacked in the heel, so it's gonna be easy enough to replace when it wears down. But all that said, it's still a good value boot. Like, it is still a $200-ish boot. If it was not made to order, you know, it would be a little more expensive, but it certainly wouldn't be able to command prices of like 300, 400 bucks, you know what I mean? So there are pros and cons to this boot. I'm gonna jump into them in a second. I just wanna talk quickly about the sizing. You wanna go true to size, which is unusual because a lot of the time with boots, especially boots that look like this, you size down a half size from your sneaker size. With this one, you wanna go to your true size. So I would suggest getting your foot measured on a Brannock device in a shoe store and just ordering that size. So I'm 11.5 in this, whereas in just about all my boots, I'm a size 11. All right, so the pros and cons of this boot. There are plenty of pros. The lining is actually really nice. This is Beckett lining. Beckett is like a pretty rare sort of leather, typically calfskin. It's vegetable tan. It's actually a whole cut piece of Beckett leather, which is really nice. And Beckett leather, it's really, really soft. It's really high quality, and it's good at, you know, temperature regulating, moisture regulating, that kind of stuff. So I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of the Blake Stitch construction. I don't think there are enough casual lace-up boots out there that are Blake Stitch. Everyone's sort of been brainwashed into thinking that if it's not Goodyear welt, it's not good, and it's not going to be resolable and everything else. But Blake Stitch boots, they really do have some advantages as far as comfort goes because they're so lightweight and so flexible. A bit less water resistant, yes, but still, like, it's still a pretty going to be a durable boot. The boot also does have a shank, which is worth emphasizing here because when a boot is 205 bucks, anything goes. You know, you can't take it for granted that it's going to have everything in there that a normal, like a welted boot would normally have. A shank is sort of a default. Some brands don't have them at this price point. This one does. A shank is a hard piece of material, in this case steel, that runs here between the heel and the midfoot. It's a big part of why boots are preferred for guys who spend all day on their feet, because the boot is nice and stable. Not only does it help to secure the heel and the ankle because it has a taller shaft, but also because quality welted boots, and also a lot of shoes, they help to reduce instability when you're walking around, and that shank is a big part of that. So it has the shank, it has a really good lining, it has the stability and the heel and ankle support that people typically want from a pair of boots, and it's a handsome boot. It's a nice, simple lace-up design, and the price is just absolutely bonkers. An important pro that I didn't touch on as well is that the tannery this comes from is gold rated by the Leather Working Group. So that's an important distinction to make because there are a lot of bad tanneries on earth that are poorly regulated, especially when they make chrome tan leather like this. And cheap chrome tan leather normally means that you are just annihilating the local environment. The workers are getting sick, they're getting respiratory diseases and like skin lesions, birth defects. There's all these sorts of studies on areas with like bad tanneries. So while I am talking a bit of smack about the leather quality here, it is nonetheless from a tannery that is not horrible for the environment. The downsides though, in the 5 years, the leather's gotten worse. I haven't tried the pull-up leather. I would consider it. If you're gonna get this boot, particularly just given the style of it anyway, don't do this thing where the boot tries to be able to be dressed up or dressed down. I think that's part of what they might be going for with this chromier sort of looking calf skin that wants to be the kind of thing that you could potentially like dress up more easily. Again, like the thinner laces as well. That sort of leans into that idea that it could potentially be not a formal boot, but you know, still something that can be dressed up more easily. I think they missed the mark with this calfskin leather. It's not the kind that can be dressed up easily, and for a casual boot, it just doesn't look that hard wearing. It's just kind of cheap looking. I would check out their pull-up leather for the boots. I think that's probably your best bet with this model. In addition to that, I mentioned that the leather in the heel doesn't look super, super high quality either. And also, of course, there's the weight. So you do have to wait several months, 2, 3, 4 months for your boots to arrive. That is a downside. Would I recommend them nonetheless? I hate to compare everything to Thursday Boot Company, but their boots are under 200 bucks. They are not made to order. They're made, you can get them as soon as you click them on the website. They arrive almost immediately. You can exchange them, which is really hard with Beckett Simonon as well. That's another downside. And they're technically a little bit cheaper, and I think the leather is better quality. That said, I am a big fan of the general, like more European look of this boot. I like the Blake Stitch that has like some advantages that you don't always get with Goodyear welted boots and everything. And also the lining is really nice, and the fit is nice as well. I like that it's got leather all the way through as well. It's got leather insole and midsole and outsole. That's not the case for all the other versions of the Dowler boot, but for this one, I like this all leather construction here. And I'm also a big fan of leather soles. A lot of people don't like them, but leather soles, they're pretty breathable, comfortable underfoot. They're fairly soft underfoot as well. I'm a big fan of leather soles, and I did a whole video on why I like them so much up there. That's my take on the Dowler boot. I didn't want that to seem too muddled for you, but yeah, it's a good value boot. The leather is the leather of a $200 boot. Don't be fooled. Check out the pull-up leather. I would go for that. Maybe do flat wax laces to make it a bit more casual. And then I think it could be a pretty interesting addition to a more casual wardrobe. For a boot that can be dressed up, I wouldn't go with this Beckett Simonon boot. I would go, however, with the Elliott boot, the Balmoral, that one in the black leather, which like harder to see if a leather's low quality when it's black. The black Balmoral boot, that's a really good one, and that's actually my go-to dress boot. This one though, don't dress it up, but get a casual version. I think, yeah, I think it could work out. All right, man, those are my off-the-cuff thoughts on the Beckett Simonon Dowler boot. Let me know what you think below. If you've had the boots like from before the tannery change to now, like what you think of the leather quality. And besides that, subscribe to here as well, because this channel is all about casual stuff that lasts a long time, and I got plenty more videos on that stuff coming out. So yeah, I'll see you later. See you at the next one.